League of Legends lore narrated. Sett, the boss. Though now a powerful player in Ionia's flourishing criminal underworld, Sett had humble origins. Born from an Ionian Vestaya and a Noxian human, the half-beast child was an outcast from the start. His birth appalled his mother's Vestayan community, which expelled the family for violating its tribal norms. The humans of Ionia were no more accepting of the taboo union, though Sett's father's infamy as a local pit fighter usually kept them from voicing their disapproval. What little security the family enjoyed vanished the day Sett's father disappeared. All of a sudden, those who had bitten their tongues at the sight of young Sett felt free to express their contempt. The boy was bewildered, wondering where his father had gone, and why trouble suddenly seemed to be following him. Sett grew up quickly, becoming calloused in the face of the taunts and threats he endured, and before long, he began using his fists to silence the insults. When news of his fights reached his mother, she made him swear not to go near the Noxian pits where his father had fought. But the more Sett fought, the more he thought of his father. Longing to find the man he only vaguely remembered, Sett snuck away to the pit late one night, after his mother had gone to bed. Immediately, he was enthralled by the spectacle. Scores of Noxian soldiers, fresh to the shores of Ionia, roared with bloodlust from the stands around him. Down in the center of the arena, fighters from all backgrounds and martial disciplines clashed in gruesome duels with a variety of weapons, the winners handsomely paid in Noxian coin. When the event was over, Sett inquired about his father, and learned a hard truth. His father had bought out his contract and left to tour more profitable pits abroad. He had deserted his family to seek fortune on the other side of the world. Burning with rage, Sett asked the arena's matchmaker for a fight, hoping that somehow his father would return from his tour and be the opponent standing across the pit from him. The matchmaker assigned the boy a fight on the next card, figuring he would be easy fodder for one of his star combatants. Sett would prove him wrong. From the moment he threw his first punch, the Beast Boy bastard was a pit-fighting sensation. Though Sett had no formal martial arts training, his primal strength and ferocity more than compensated, and he leveled his more technically sound opponents like a battering ram. Never abandoning hope that he might one day fight his father, he soon became the undisputed king of the pit, with a swollen coffer of prize money, and a trail of broken opponents to his name. Night after night, Sett brought money and comforts to his mother, always lying about how he had acquired them. It warmed his calloused heart to see her so proud of his success, no longer forced to toil at menial jobs. Still, Sett couldn't help but feel he could do better. Being the king of the pit was good, but being the person who owned the pit, that was where the real money was. Late one night, after defending his title in front of a record-breaking crowd, Sett presented his new demands to the Noxian matchmaker and his cronies. He suggested they grant him control of the arena and its revenue. When they refused, Sett barred the doors. Minutes later, the doors reopened, and the Noxians emerged, badly maimed, with a message on their bloodied lips. The half-beast was the new boss. With the promoters out of the picture, Sett took control of the pit he once fought in. Ionians, who had only recently been conditioned for war, flocked to the arena, paying to satisfy an urge they only now knew they possessed. Sett took full advantage of their newfound bloodlust, accumulating wealth and power beyond his wildest boyhood dreams, as he transformed the pit into the hub of an underground empire of gambling and vice. The half-beast who reigned supreme in the pit now runs his illicit enterprises with the same iron fist. Anytime someone challenges his authority, he personally reminds them where they stand. Every punch Sett throws is a blow to his old life of poverty and ostracism, and he intends to make sure that old life stays down. Sett's short story, Big Head, Bad News, by John O'Brien. Who's watching the till? I ask. Shirap, the stick of a man taking weapons at the door, looks at me with bug eyes, scared he's done something wrong. Rio's on the till tonight, he says. Get 2 more on it, I tell him. It's a big night, lots of spenders. Last thing I need is some lowlife making off with the profit. Shirap scurries off. A couple seconds later he comes back with 2 of my heaviest hitters. After they join Rio at the coin box, I check back on the action in the arena. The place is packed, crammed to the doors with nobodies, somebodies, and everyone in between. People with nothing much in common, except a hankering for blood. And they're about to get it. My star combatant, Prawn the Flare, has just finished his long, sauntering entrance. His chiseled body is painted entirely green, and he wears a small buckler on his left forearm. His infamous whip sword, painted to look like a viper, remains coiled on his belt as he enters the pit to face his opponent. The challenger? Some Shuriman guy. Is it Farrell? I'll learn his name if he wins. Stares a hole in him, his hand up by his shoulders, itching to grab the twin daggers sheathed on his back. He's come halfway around the world for this, and he'll be damned if some local golden boy is going to show him up. With a wave of the pit officer's scarf, our show is on. The fighters circle each other in the center of the floor. Always the entertainer, Flare draws the whip sword and snaps it all around his body. He's one of about 8 people in the world who can do this without cutting his own face off, and he loves to show it off. Insulted by the taunt, the Shuriman draws his daggers. He sprints across the pit, throwing himself into a whirl of blades, slicing the wind at unnatural angles. Flare is surprised, but not off guard. He parries a dagger with his buckler, throwing the Shuriman off balance for a split second. It feels like an eternity. The Shuriman's body is turned off kilter, hands by his waist, his entire torso a wide-open target. In a single, fluid movement, the Flare swings his whipsword clean across the throat of his opponent. The Shuriman drops to the floor in a growing pool of his own blood. The crowd erupts. "How's that till?" I shout to the boys in the back. "Got it, boss," replies Shirap, as the eager throng swarm the vestibules to settle their debts. Back down on the floor, I see the pit crew loading the Shuriman onto the corpse cart. A few feet away, Flare celebrates with some of his fans. He's got a look on his face. I know it well. It's not relief, not contentment. He's getting a big head, and it's going to be bad news. About an hour later, the crowd has gone home, and the till has been emptied and counted. Just when I'm saying goodnight to the crew, guess who stops me at the door? It's the Flare. He's holding a fat bag of coin, but he doesn't look happy. Says he's got a bone to pick. Here we go. I ask him what's the problem. He just won big in front of a record-breaking crowd. He says that's just it. He drew a record-breaking crowd. He should get a cut of the till. My till. Now, I understand where he's coming from. Same place I was coming from when I took over this whole thing. But just 'cause I understand what a fella wants don't mean I gotta give it to him. I tell the Flare no. Then the guy blows up. He starts telling me how lucky I am to have him in my pit. "Do you know how many people in the world can do what I do?" he asks. 9. 9, huh? Guess they must have added one, I say. He keeps mouthing off, says I've gotten fat and don't remember what it's like to risk my neck in the pit. By this point, a bunch of my crew is starting to listen in. Seeing how I can't have people thinking I'm soft, I figure it's a good time to remind Flare who's the boss and who's the employee. But he's not having it. "You're just some washed-up ex-champ in a fur coat telling us real fighters what to do," he says. "Anybody could do your job." This does not sit well with me. I tell Flare we can go toe-to-toe in the pit, and he'll find out just how much of a fighter I still am. I guess at this point, he feels like he can't back down, because he accepts my offer. If I win, I take your pit and all that comes with it, he says. I nod. He waits, like he's expecting me to add my own stipulations, as if he'd got anything that I'd want. All I ask is that we do it in front of a crowd. Let's get paid for it. Fight night comes, and there's so many people on hand, they're spilling out the doors of the arena. I've got 5 of my heavies on the till tonight. I walk out into the pit, drums beating, crowd roaring, and I see the Flayer standing across from me, green and hot-headed as ever. My Vestayan sense of decency kicks in. I tell him all he's got to do is tell the arena full of people how wrong he was to disrespect me, and we can call off the fight. He spits on the ground and angrily cracks his whip sword overhead. He ain't backing down. By the time the pit official waves his scarf, the Flayer is halfway across the floor. He flings his whip sword at me, and before I can react, the shifty little cuss takes off a piece of my cheek. He snaps it a couple more times, coming dangerously close to my throat. Then, while I'm trying to deal with his weird floppy blade, he nails me in the face with his buckler. I land flat on my back, seeing double. He draws his whip sword back. We're not even a minute into this, and already Flayer is going for the kill. This ain't happening. His blade comes lashing at my neck once more, and this time I grab it, with my bare hand. Flayer's eyes bulge from his dumb green face. My blood gets pumping. My hair stands on end. I feel a little growl escape from the corner of my mouth. I barely feel the blade cutting into my palm, or the blood running down my forearm as I stand and pull the Flayer by his sword, yanking him into my other fist. I repeat the motion a few more times, my brass-knuckle duster chewing his face to a pulp. When I finally stop punching, he coughs out a tooth and tells me I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. What are you doing? I'm your biggest draw, he says. Flayer, you're losing to a washed-up ex-champ. Who's going to pay to see you fight now? With his last ounce of energy, he hawks a big mouthful of blood into my face. Right there, in front of the gods and everybody. I can't have an arena full of people thinking I'm not the boss. So I pick the guy up by the throat and slam him hard as I can, smashing his greedy fat head deep into the floor of the pit. He twitches for a second, then stops. The crowd eats it up. Late that night, I stop by Mama's house, like usual. She's in bed already, so I quietly leave a nice stack of coin on the dresser and give her a kiss on the forehead. She wakes and smiles at the sight of her boy standing there at her bedside. As I touch her cheek, she notices the bandage on my hand, where I grabbed Flayer's blade. "Oh, Cedric, what happened?" she says, all concerned. "Nothing big, just cut myself building," I say. "What did you build today, son?" she asks. "An orphanage. For orphans, Ma," I say, as I give her one last kiss goodnight. "Such a good boy," she says. Her eyes tear up as she drifts off to sleep, like she's proud knowing her son's making a respectable living.